Good evening, Keepers of the Cash. Gary B, the Casual Comic Guy here, and I am joined with my co-host, as always, Rob, Fat Stacks of Comics. How are you doing tonight, Rob?
Yes.
He's doing yes, folks. Glad to hear you're in a yes. And, of course, our man of the hour tonight, the guy that's here to show his books and talk to us, none other than Matt Woods, making his triumphant return to YouTube in the last week. Matt is back. Matt, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right, Gary. Rob, I'm glad you were doing yes today because that sounds fantastic. But
It's better than anything else in the news.
right? But you're right. I was away from YouTube for 2 months now. So it's taking a little bit of a break from the YouTube game.
And before we get going on our 10-1-1 here with you in the books, we're going to just say hi to our chat real quick. We, of course, always have Chop and Drop. How are you doing, sir? We have Joe here from Anachronic. Roger here, our first host, our first guest who started this show with us. Thank you, Roger, for showing up. And Wow and Rob, Fat Stacks of Comics. All right. But, guys, let's get into it. So, Matt, before we start showing it, you just came back. Let people know what's happening on your channel and who you are. For the people who may watch us on the rewind who do not know who you are, so they can find you.
Well, my name's Matt Woods. I have a nice little YouTube channel, Matt Woods Comics. I had been away for 2 months. I got coaching high school basketball, and my nights, my days were just too long. I really didn't have a whole lot of time, but I can be found on Instagram at Matt Woods Comics, underscore between Matt Woods and Comics. And then on YouTube, Matt Woods Comics. But I found Gary because he's a great Conan fan. And like us Conan fans like to stick together. So that's how I found your channel.
Thank you. Likewise, how I found yours as well, searching up Conan and seeing some of your videos come up. So
There's
the
10-1-1
for those of you watching, Matt is going to go through 10 books that he handpicked out that he wants to talk about a little bit. Not a top 10, just 10, regardless of value, just books that mean something to him. Then we're going to do one book that has a story attached to it, and then he's going to give us a spec pick. So we got that coming up. So Matt, why don't you start us off with your first book, sir, and we'll get cracking.
So you made me limit it down to 10. You know how hard that is when you have a room full of awesome books? Yeah.
Well, that's so we can have you back.
But I decided my first book, I'm going to go with this Ernie Chan cover, Conan Barbarian 163. The reason I'm going with this, my mother got me a subscription to comic books back in 1984. I was 7 years old at the time, almost 8. Anyhow, this is the first book that came in the mail because I just saw the movie Conan the Barbarian with Arnold, so I wanted to get it. This is the book that got me into comic books right here. So 163. Love that cover. Okay, Ernie Chan, I mean, it was like magic whenever I pulled it out of the I got it out of the mail, actually. Joe, Anachronic Comics, he sent me this old subscription flyer. This is how comic books used to come to people. So whenever I pulled this book out of, this subscription flyer, my love of comics started on that day. I'll tell you that. But,
Agree.
now I guess I got to go with the other bunch, huh?
Sure, and that was, and again, too, a beautiful EGS slab, right? Something we haven't seen a lot of that's up and coming.
This was actually given to me by the comic book community. Battle Delta 66 and Battle Panda 66, they honored me with this on Veterans Day. So this is the only EGS slab that I have. And honestly, I love how this slab displays. This is, it's a top-notch type of material that they use there. So, I I had a PGX, but then I ended up giving it away. I didn't mind that slab. I didn't think it was as bad as I thought, or I had heard. And then CBCS puts out great slabs. I love those just as much as I do CGC. But second one, a little bit of DC love right here. I got Harley Quinn's first appearance, Batman Adventures number 12. Got this book off of a pretty famous YouTuber, Reggie Collects. He was selling it and ended up snatching this up off of him.
Great book.
Nice grade too.
Yeah, I'm kind of digging a grade. I'll be honest, that Harley Quinn, I watched that show back in the 90s, the Batman Beyond, or I don't even know what it was called. I think it was just Batman.
Batman Adventures.
Was it Adventures?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I used to watch that, so I kind of knew Harley Quinn, but it was actually more my roommate in college at the time. He was watching it, but I would sit down and watch it with him. I kind of liked and dug the character, but whenever that movie Suicide Squad came out, I was like, this is a pretty cool character. So I became a little Harley Quinn fan there.
Nice.
Now, my next book right here, okay? This is Spawn #1, black and white cover. Okay, it's 9.8, but that 9.8, there's a story with this, okay? I bought this book years ago. I think I paid $10 for it at an LCS. And the thing was in immaculate condition, okay? I ended up taking it to an LCS, to a different LCS, to have sent to CGC. Now, the problem, this is before you could send books in yourself. You had to go through, somebody else to send them in for you. I took this book in a Batman or an Ultimate Spider-Man #1 white cover, which was a pretty, hot book at the time. I took him to LCS owner, and he was busy, and he took him. I said, hey, can you send these to CGC for me? He goes, yeah, sure. He pulled them out of my hands, flipped them down on his thumb, and I'm like, and he walked away. And then I was like, are you going to package these? He goes, oh, I'll get to that. Don't worry about it. So I walked out of that LCS. I just had this sick feeling in my gut. Well, I get a call about a month, 2 months later. Hey, CGC, they weren't able to grade that Ultimate Spider-Man because it was destroyed. And they ended up saying, did you want the Spawn graded? It took a little damage, but not bad. Well, the Spawn came back at 9.4. And I had this seriously for 15 years in the collection as a 9.4. Still loved that in that grade. Now that Ultimate Spider-Man, they actually shipped it back to him. It was literally torn in pieces. The front cover was just,
wow, shame
got
on
ripped
that
up and everything. But so last year I decided to get brave. This was 2020, okay? And I was like, you know what? I think this can get pressed out because between 2004 or 5 or whenever that was that I had sent it down, I learned about pressing. So I had CGC crack and press and regrade this book. Came back in 9.8. There's less than 100 9.8s of this book in the world, so I'm kind of stoked about this one.
Nice.
That being said, I ended up cracking the corner about a month ago. Ended up slipping right out of my hand, fell on the floor, but the book's in good shape. Need a reholder. But so, how many books have I done so far?
You have done 3 books so far.
Holy smokes! You guys got to tell me to speed this up. We're gonna be here a long time.
Yeah, we're only 9 minutes in. You're doing well, Matt.
But all right, another super dope book. Okay. Anybody that follows the Reggie Collects YouTube channel, they know about this book, okay? I have about a half a dozen copies of Amazing Spider-Man #110. This is the first appearance of Stan Lee's biggest supervillain, the Gibbon, okay? Now, the whole Gibbon thing, it's just a complete joke on Reggie's channel, but you know what? I can't say I came back in the comics, but I ended up getting sick in the year, 2019. I had a near-death experience, and I was held up in the house a little bit, and I wanted to start organizing my comic books that I'd had for years and years, but they weren't organized very well. So I go on to different YouTube channels, and I came across Gary's, I came across Bueller's, Comic Tom's, I came a lot of them, okay? ETA Nick was another one. And I kept coming across this Reggie Collects guy, okay? And he would talk about different things in the hobby that while I'm filing books away, I'm watching YouTube videos. And I never watched comic book YouTube videos before. The whole social media thing, I never really did anything with it. So I ended up going on a few live streams. And if any of you guys have been on there, you've met Tina, okay? Tina is a super awesome human being. She's one of Reggie's moderators. But the Gibbon gang, they just kind of, embraced me and, let me join their gang. Their gang. But but it was a very welcoming thing. I wouldn't have a YouTube channel if it wasn't for Reggie. But no, I mean, you have so many great people. You have Sindane, TSP, you have Tina, you have Master Blaster, Madam Blaster. I can't even name them all. Solly Two Kings, Joe, who's in this chat, Doug, Dave Bratton, Paul, Psychedelic Comics, so many great people. And like I said, I guarantee you I'm going to miss names. There's Lee Atkins, Wayne, Squirrel Madness, so many great people. Freaky Louie is another one of those YouTube videos that I would start watching whenever I was putting my comics away. But so this book actually kind of means a lot to me because I got to meet a lot of people through this, and again, I got to meet you kind of through this because I started getting more active on Instagram and social media. And so even Rob, I never would have seen any of Rob's videos if it wasn't for these people in the Gibbon gang. So,
now, they were asking if you have all 3 consecutive issues of that the Gibbon appears in.
Is the Pope Catholic? Does the sun come up in the morning, guys? Of course I have the Gibbon appearances.
All right, book number 5. Let's keep this train rolling. Let's see what you got, because I know you got some good books.
All right. I have this book, okay? This book, which I'm showing my camera in, this is ASM 36, okay? This is a tribute to 9/11. And 9/11, it affected my life a lot, okay? I ended up getting sent overseas, combat zone, but I just kind of liked how Marvel decided, hey, you know what? We're not going to worry about comic books. We're going to worry about the world and, real life events. And so I kind of really dig this. Obviously it was such a big day in our country, world's history, but I just felt Marvel did it right. Now,
well, it's one of those days you remember exactly what you were doing when it happened.
I say this without any type of remorse or fear. As an adult, I cry very seldom. I mean, if a family member passes away, something like that, absolutely. But I just don't cry. I remember that day. I was actually in the Air Force, and I was at work. Whenever I got back to my place, I didn't mean to do this, but I shut that door and I fell down to my knees, and it was it was a pretty emotional experience for me. I knew the world changed that day, and I was like, you know what? Somehow we failed the American people that day. And so, like I said, it was a very emotional thing. So I really, really like this book.
Yeah, and it's really the right way to do it. They call out nothing, no attention to themselves, just...
Yes. That and is Marvel's biggest title, too. It wasn't...
Right. In New York, right? It's like, how can you not? You operate your characters in the real world. You have to acknowledge something changed.
Yeah. But they did a good job with this, so I was proud of Marvel.
And well, in that whole time too, they had some great issues with the Avengers and stuff, with the heroes in the back, America's heroes, where they were showing off, talking about the firemen and the rescue workers and everyone that was involved with helping out. Marvel did a lot of good things, not ignoring that when that happened and just including it in what was going on.
I couldn't say it better myself, Gary. Yeah, they just took it right. They took it serious. But,
Now we got serious. I forgot what number we're on.
I can count 1, 2,
Thanks.
3, 4, 5. I've done 5, so
Okay.
now we're working on number 6. All right. Now this was a birthday present from my wife.
Never seen that book before. What's it? What is that?
Right.
Is that a special book?
This has a small appearance of a character. Or first
appearance of a short Canadian.
Oh, Puck. Got it. Okay.
Yes, Puck. But no, my wife, it was kind of odd. Her and I were eating breakfast one day, and she goes, "Hey Matt, if you could have any comic book, what would you want?" And I'm like, I don't know. My wife and I don't really talk about comic books a whole lot, okay? Or if we talk about it, it's basically I'm talking and she's just listening. Okay.
You mean pretending to listen?
More like pretending, yes.
Uh-huh.
I think everyone can relate to that. So anyhow, so she's asking me this, and I'm like, I don't know. I never had a Hulk 181, and she goes, "Well, your birthday's coming up, and that's actually the book I got you." And I'm like, "What?" Yeah, she pulled out a Hulk 181 for me, and I didn't even know she would know to look for this book or anything. So I'm kind of impressed that she got this. So yeah, first appearance of Puck. Great little story.
Did she cop to just walking into LCS and asking them, if my husband's a big comic book guy, what book would he want?
I think she talked to my son, and I think he's the one that gave her a little cue. Either that, or she kind of asked me that like a year or two before, and I just kind of forgot about it.
That's clever.
She's the smarter of the two of us. She figured it out.
Joe's giving your
I
wife
did that
shot.
when I was planned before I bought her and my wife's engagement ring, was a year in advance trying to scope out what kind of cut and stuff she wanted. So when it eventually came time, it was a surprise.
You got to do your homework. Sounds like you did. But I saw Joe. He said that he met my wife, but Joe is a wonderful person, and my wife thinks Joe's a really nice guy. So.
Joe is a nice guy.
He is.
Yeah, he's a super, super great guy. One of the great Gibbon Gang members that I was talking about. But this is a book, Blue Marble. Okay, what is the name? Adam, Legend of the Blue Marble. Okay, this is a 6-issue miniseries. What a powerful, powerful story. About superheroes back in the 50s, and I see this Blue Marble being a character that is going to go pretty far somewhere, because this writing, okay, one of my favorite all-time miniseries that I've ever read. So just a great message all around. I was talking about some books that I might send away. This book, I look at this book over and over. They are they're non-color breaking defects that are on here that I really feel that will press out nicely. I feel this book might end up coming back in 9.8.
Yeah, worth the try.
I've had luck sending books down to CGC and having them press them and send them back. I had a ASM 300 that came back in 9.8. It was a 9.4 when it went down there. I had that Spawn, that was a 9.4 before I sent it back. Came back in 9.8. And then one of these other books that I'm going to show, I sent it down there to have them press it, and it came back a higher grade.
I've had it go both ways.
I haven't yet. Okay.
Nothing's more depressing.
Didn't curse you.
the only great thing is after I had it done and it came back down. It was like the second time the first time I had sent it in because it had a cracked case, whatever. But anyways, at least the Newton rings went away.
Okay. I guess that's good.
The grade dropped, but I had no more Newton rings. So yeah.
So wait, you just sent it to get re-slabbed, not reholdered?
No. That time it went in to get if you just get reholdered, they're not gonna do anything. So you have to send it in there to get it pressed and regraded. Yeah.
But I'm
surprised.
The first time was a reholder. It went in for a reholder. because it was so badly Newton ringed, and
Okay.
and then it came back with even more Newton rings, and then I sent it in to get it pressed, redone, and everything else. It was also being signed, but then it
Oh,
dropped
okay.
It dropped 2 grades,
Ooh,
but it came back with no Newton rings.
and a signature.
Bruce Timm's signature.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Really?
So yeah.
But
Now,
no,
I'm surprised you don't have a local presser that you use, because I've never used CGC or CBCS as pressers. I have a local guy I use before anything goes out at all.
if you look right there, I have a press right here. I've only ever used CGC if it's already been graded. I just don't want to cut it open and make a mistake with a book that might be worth quite a bit. So if it's graded, I'd send it down CGC. But otherwise, I just press them myself.
Yeah.
Nice.
200 days.
Add 200 days is right. Oh. Those are business days, by the way.
Right. Exactly.
But all right, next book. Okay, Gunslinger Spawn. Okay, the first appearance. This is Spawn number 174. I have a full run of Spawn. I think I'm missing 3 issues that are just filler issues that I'll find someday at an LCS. But I have a full run of Spawn, and I was putting all my books in a online database. Okay, it would tell you the value of the book, and most of the Spawn books were like $3. But then, just this one random book was worth quite a bit more than any other book in the whole lot. And I'm like, what is going on with this? And found out it was first appearance of Gunslinger, and so I pressed this book, sent it off. But and then they came out with a new series just last summer, Gunslinger Spawn. So I'm kind of excited to see where this character goes.
I was gonna say, is that actually a Gunslinger Spawn? That issue, is that actually a good read, or is it just a character that took off because of a great character design?
I would love to answer that. Okay, and I'm a reader of comics, but for some reason, Spawn, I read up to like 100, the first 150 issues. I have not read one since. I have drawers full of Spawn books that I just need to catch up on. And it's one of those series that I'm like, I really enjoyed it. Like, I really liked it. But I just never followed on after 150. I'm always reading something else. But yeah, I couldn't tell you if this is a good read, but people say that it is.
Nice. So what are we, book 9 now, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Book number 9. Okay. Now, this is Gary's favorite cover. Okay.
It's one of the best covers of all time in comics.
I'm trying to get the glare off of it, but Barry Windsor Smith did such a great job with this. His last one on there, Roy Thomas signed this. Actually, I'm not a big fan of sending books down to CGC for the in-house signings, but you know what? I wanted to get Stan Lee's signature for years and years, and I always like, well, I'll eventually run into Stan Lee at some show, something, and I'll get a signature. It just never happened. So, you know, and we lost Stan Lee, and I'm like, Roy, I'm not going to miss out on some of my favorite, you know, creators. So I was like, you know what? Roy Thomas is a CGC. I'm going to send this down. Now, this is the first book I ever sent down for a in-house signing, okay? And I just wanted to see what would happen. It came back. I had this book raw in the collection for years and years. I ended up pressing it, sent it down. Yeah, I put a nice little window bag. And with this Barry Windsor Smith art on this, I did not want to mess with putting a signature over top of this art. So I just wanted him to put it right in the trade dress so that it didn't distract from the awesome cover that it is. So,
right.
This is one of my favorite books. Not all these books are my favorite books. I just felt like I had something to say about each one of them. This is such a good one.
And that is my absolute favorite Red Sonja costume on that cover.
I agree. I don't like the Frank Thorne, you know, chainmail bikini or whatever.
That was actually Esteban Morado who did the chainmail bikini, and it stayed after he did it.
Okay. And I'm with you. I think it looks silly. I mean,
Like
really
that
does.
looks fantastic.
Yes, I agree with that. But I'm glad you said that because I've always felt that chainmail bikini was just, it looked goofy, to be honest with you. But this, she's got the full shirt and yeah, she's got some red shorts to go with it. But I like this outfit much better. Who runs around in a chainmail bikini? That just seems like it'd be cold.
And it looks
Cold,
better.
impractical, and chafes like a son of a bitch.
Right?
It sounds like you have experience, Rob.
Oh, I wear a chainmail bikini every weekend at the Red Fair.
That's his Saturday night.
I'm proud of you. that's some pretty tough stuff. Okay. So I ended up sending. Please don't send me pictures though. That's all.
Yeah.
But all right. So I've sent books to CGC to be cracked and pressed. I've sent books down to be signed, and I've been happy with what happened. Well, Roy Thomas went back to CGC for a second signing, okay? And with the confidence that I had with what happened with this book and with some of those other books that I sent to get pressed, this book I sent down there. Now, this was a 9.4. I bought it. It was a blue label, and I looked at this book through the case. Now, I won't send a book to CGC to be repressed if I can't see pressable defects in it, things that are non-color breaking that I feel will get better. Well, this is, Gary and I were talking, this is a 52-year-old book, and it came back at 9.6. So I feel quite ecstatic with this grade. I don't know how many there are signed and in this grade, but it's not a whole lot. But even the back, okay, because I didn't know how good of a job CGC did with their cleaning, if they even really did anything with it. This book was a brown cover. I mean, I didn't realize it was dirty. I just thought it was brown paper, just from oxidation over the years. This came back. It was a cream to off-white. This is now a off-white to white pages. So, they really did a good job. Of
that would make sense for the cover, but the pages, there's no such thing as page whitener. So I don't know what they.
No,
it's just how somebody reads the owl card that day.
What I think it is the outside cover. I mean, they cleaned a page. They must have cleaned a bunch of dirt off of it.
It shouldn't though, because the white off-white to white pages stuff, that's the interior pages. It's not.
I agree, but no, I do agree with that. But
those back covers were so hard to keep.
I mean, I've had it happen before. I always joke about page whitener because it just shows that it's probably the best thing that will show the subjectivity of grading, that it's it's a human who's doing it. So there's a card. If anyone does,
card.
Yeah, where I think if you've ever sat there and tried to line up a color against color palettes in the store at a Home Depot or something, I think that's the right one. The lighting you're in affects everything. It's not.
And that's a great grade for that.
You're absolutely right on that one, actually.
Yeah.
So, all right, my 10th book here. Holy smokes, gentlemen. You got me talking, all right? My 10th book here is a book that Joe, in the comments, did not get to see. This was a copy that I had already. I had a raw copy that I took to Roy Thomas signing in Rhode Island, okay? Fabulous experience. Joe did most of the talking. I kind of just held the camera, was in stunned awe, right next to Roy Thomas. But this is a nice book here. The raw copy that I have at CGC right now, I don't know that it'll get as high of a grade as this, but I think with the press that it may. But either way, it's going to have an awesome Roy Thomas signature on it. And I told you I'll press my own books. This is a magazine, and the staples are different. They're underneath the front cover. I don't know enough about pressing magazines to press a book of this value. So I'm sending it CGC for them to
Right,
press
and
it.
that book blew up this year. It was one I was waiting to get, and now it's, we all have those girls that outprice themselves for us.
Yes.
That one did that this year for me because it went from a pretty affordable book, like you could get one in a good grade for around 100, to over $1,000 book just because first appearance of Man Thing in it. So for
Yes.
not even Conan, which is ridiculous, but
Yeah.
for a character that doesn't even speak, and now it's $1,000+ book.
But he is,
I do
the
love
commander of the
Man Thing, too.
Nexus, so that means
Yes.
something.
But
I-
yeah, fantastic book.
That's
Now-
just a tough one with being a magazine. That's just
And
2 years. 2 years at CGC hell practically.
Well, that's what I was about ready to talk about. The time for a magazine turnaround time is 200 some days, and I haven't looked since probably October. Okay, but I also sent it to get pressed. The press time at CGC is over 200 days. Those are business days. Okay, those are not calendar days. So, like yesterday was President's Day. I have a feeling CGC's probably not at work. Okay. So, yeah, this is going to come back 2024 or 25, somewhere in there, okay? Long time off.
Well, and
You forget you had it.
Yeah.
I just sent out another Savage Sword #1, and that's 220 days is what I'm looking at to get that back.
Ooh, ouch.
But this
That's
one's a
another
9/8
book.
candidate, so
I lucked out getting that book before it blew up, too. That's another book that was kind of low for a while. I got it literally a month before it almost doubled in price. That Savage Sword #1.
I got 3 of those. I'm lucky.
I have a couple. I have a couple. I have one raw, maybe 2 raws. I'm not sure, and I have 1 graded. But
Now,
all right. So, which one am I on now? Am I on my
You
story
are the
time or my
story
spec book?
the story. One with a
Ooh.
story.
This is a good one. All right. Some people
ears
have heard
are ready.
this story. Okay. Now, this is one of those stories like no crap, there I was type of story. Okay. I have an Amazing Spider-Man #1. It's a low grade. We're not going to pretend that this is like,
Lame.
Rob palpitations.
but we're not going to pretend this is a high grade book. Okay. It's a low grade, but I love this book. Okay. As you know, I coach basketball. Okay. And this was 20+ years ago. And I had a friend that was riding with me, and she saw this yard sale, and we had some time to kill. And she's like, "Hey, stop at this yard sale." I'm like, "Really? I really didn't want to go there." But I did it. So I pulled over, and I don't even know what she was looking at. I could have cared less. But I saw these old, like National Geographic, popular mechanics, popular science books. They were old. They were from the 50s, 60s. Okay. And I'm just leafing through them. And guys, I'd only started collecting comics a year, maybe 2 years at most. Okay. Before this happened. And I came across this book and I'm like, is this ASM1? And I'm looking at the book and I open up the inside cover and I'm looking at it and it's dated 1963. And I'm like, this is the original ASM1. And I asked the guy what he wanted for it. And he told me, some of those comic books go for good money. I'm just going to ask $1 for that. And I'm like, $1. So I ended up giving him a pretty nice tip. And he was trying to give me change. And I'm like, no, buddy, it's good. Like, thank you. But I have a feeling that in his family stories, he has a story about some moron who gave him like a bunch of money for a bunch of extra money for an old comic book. But what it was I don't know, and I forget if it was his uncle, his grandfather, or his father, but somebody had this book in the attic of their house, okay, and they passed away. And what happened, the inside pages are absolutely immaculate. I mean, they look sharp. but the outside cover, condensation or whatever got in the attic. And whenever they pulled it away from the magazine that was next to it, some of the ink transferred and pulled off. And, that happened on both covers. Definitely more on the front cover than the back. But if it wasn't for ink missing, this book could have got a much higher grade. It's just, well, like I said, it got beat up pretty good. But so that is my story. That no crap, there I was.
But it's a complete ASM1
for $1. But so this is my storybook. I love this story, love this book. But
you should. Yeah. That's the dream. That's the only way I'm going to get an ASM1.
I have yet to get that dollar fine. That's amazing. Yet one day. I think.
Well, your previous guest, the Hulk 180 and Hulk 181.
Right, Roger. Yeah.
I guess I need to get my ass out to garage sales.
And that's what I'm thinking, Rob. I used to never stop at them.
From that point on, every time my wife and I will stop at some garage sale or yard sale or whatever, I'm always looking into magazines and stuff. Oh, yeah, if they have them. They don't always have them, but I'm always looking for some books.
Fantastic story. Yeah. So, Ann, you got a pretty big one to spec on, right?
I think so. I think this book
ASM1. I hear he's coming to the movies.
3 of them. Well, kind of. The spec book, okay? Now, this book has blown up.
The mysterious 9.8, no less.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's not exactly the easiest book to get in a 9.8.
I was telling Gary that I've lucked out over the years. If you have been a collector long enough, you luck out. Now, you might have paid what, quote, was a lot of money at the time for the book, but over the years, you're like, wow, what a bargain. I did not pay anywhere near what this book is going for today. Okay, this book, I've seen it go for $3,500 recently on eBay. Now, I think this book has a lot of room to go up even higher. This is the Hulk. This is our generation's Hulk 181. As soon as Miles makes that first MCU appearance, that live action appearance, I see this book going up high. And it might hover around 10,000 for a few years, but I definitely see this book, like I said, the Hulk 181. And I actually bought this when 2020. I bought it in summer 2020, right before it blew up after they released that video game that had Miles in it. So, and I didn't know about that video game even coming out. I just kind of lucked out buying it at the right amount or, the right time. Because it blew up to like $1,200 there for a while.
Yep.
And it's weird that a video game was the catalyst for that.
Yeah. I remember that too. Because I didn't have a copy of it. And I kept hearing all the news about it. And I didn't end up getting my copy a little bit after some of the commotion had died down from the video game. But but yeah, that video game, a book has never blown up like that over a video game until this one. It was really weird.
Right.
I've never seen it, never heard of it. Now,
complete anomaly.
Now this book did blow up whenever that cartoon movie came out. Okay, the animated
Spider-Verse.
Yeah, but it didn't go crazy yet. Something about that video game, I think people just realize there's some future to this because the kids that are playing video games are going to be us, 20 years down the road. So they're going to be the ones buying up books like this. And Miles Morales speaks to this generation very, very well. Hey, Jackson Roy Kirk. He's one of my favorite people in the chat.
That is some great books, and that ASM story for a buck. I mean, that's unbeatable. We're gonna have you and Roger on a show called Dueling Dollar Stories, and just have you guys duke it out for dollar wins.
I don't.
We gave two guys $1 each, and they had to go invest in comics. 5 years later, we revisit them to see who made the biggest return.
I don't know. That's going to be tough. Hulk 180 and Hulk 181.
Now we're visiting them on their private island.
I'm looking for an Action Comics #1 if anyone has one. I'll give you $2 for it.
Ooh,
Right.
big spender.
And a shiny quarter.
Oh, we can't pass that up.
Yeah, exactly. But so everybody in the chat, I have not been able to read any of these comments because of my setup, but I'm excited to go watch this in the replay and see the comments down there. Because there's a host of characters in there.
Oh, wow. Great books. Thank you for bringing those on.
It's nice that you brought the cheap spec for the people who might be thinking about it, though. That was
Yeah, it's not a cheap. I mean, but honestly, I'm telling you, that book is going to explode even higher than it is now. So if you can find that in a dollar bin somewhere, hidden,
that LCS owner doesn't go look it up on eBay before he rings you up.
You could luck out. I've heard stories about that being found.
Well, with the way the current market is, with so many people looking for these keys, there's no way you're going to find that for a buck.
Well,
Everyone that goes into a
collections.
comic shop is diving.
Well, yeah, a comic book shop you're not going to find. They know what a UF4 is, and but the garage sales, the estate sales, the lot sales, the collection sales, those things. They exist if you want to put in the time. Look, you hear the stories, but how many garage sales do you go to that you don't walk away with nothing, right? It's
all of them.
Yeah. So it's always one of those things. It's you got to play to win, but you're also going to strike out.
Yeah,
a lot of times too. But
it's just a
thrill the hunt.
Shoot.
That was amazing.
Lot of fun. I really enjoyed this show.
Oh well, this show came to me while I was driving one day, and then because I wanted another live show and something different to do, and then I just planned on just me and another guest. Then I'm like, let me throw the hint out there to Rob, see if he wants to co-host with me. And Rob is a great wingman, or he's a great host in his own right.
Yes,
and,
he is.
Well, what I like is we're 2 episodes in, Gary. You've had 1 all raws, 1 all slabs. Now it's gonna have to be a
mix.
Yeah.
I got one more book here for you, Gary.
I got one hopefully coming back in 9.8 that I got out. The one I currently have is a 9.4.
I am rooting for you, buddy, because if there's anyone in the world that deserves the Savage Sword of Conan #1, 9.8, that is you.
Oh.
And the one I sent out is crispy. And those are hard to press too because of the glue and the square bound on it.
Yeah.
Those are hard. You need a good presser for those. Someone that knows what they're doing.
And I press books. I'm comfortable pressing books, not magazines. I would screw it up.
We got Jackson Roykirk's been trolling us for fun. I'll rewatch this later. I just hope there's no Conan in it.
There's zero Conan in this episode whatsoever.
And he was picking on you earlier too. Something like I missed it. Don't tell Matt how much I loathe him.
Jackson's a smack talker, okay?
Oh, I wouldn't have it any other way. But I want to thank our audience for coming out tonight and joining us. And I want to thank my co-host, Rob. Obviously, I want to thank Matt Woods for bringing these incredible books, which I'm sure you got a future spot on Rob's channel. But
yeah, when you're tired of that ASM one, I'll find a space for it. I'll hold it for you.
Actually, if you look right here to the wall where there's a frame and there's no book in that frame, that's where that ASM sits all the time.
And it should. It should.
Right front and center.
Now, Rob, what have you got coming up on your channel this week, sir?
Oh, just 2 things this week. Thursday, I'll have an unboxing video that's going to drop some CGC Signature Series returns, a bunch of double-signed books coming back from CGC. And then Saturday is Slab Hub. We will have the Company Man, Wink Inc., coming off to show off some Slabby Boys on the old Slab Hub this week. That'll be at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, over on Rob's Fat Stacks of Comics.
Nice. And Matt, what have you got coming up on your channel, sir?
Well, right now I'm working on a video of how I have all these drawers right in here, and I want to show people how I organize them. I organize them, obviously, not obviously, but alphabetical, by title, by serial number, but I also enter them into a free online, catalog, and I'll just use my iPad here. So I want to show people how I organize my comic collection. So hopefully that's done by Friday. And then on Joe Anachronic Comics channel, it's the comic book crowd is going to be on it Friday evening. So I'm excited because Master Blaster, Climbing Comics, Joe, Squirrel Madness, and I will be on there, and we're just going to be talking comic books.
Nice. All right. And gentlemen, ladies, people in the chat, anyone watching on the rewind, both of these fine gentlemen on the show with me, I'll get this right. Matt and Rob, their links are in the description below. If you guys are not subbed up to them, please click their links, sign up to these great channels. And if you're watching this and you like the content, please sub up to mine. I would appreciate it. But guys, these two gentlemen are awesome. Gentlemen, thank you for a great second outing on this show.
You're awesome.
You are awesome, Gary. That
Right?
way. Yeah, and I never know which way to point.
That's why I like being where I'm at. I can just go like this. It's easy.
I think next up on this, in 2 weeks' time, we have Marco from Switch Comics coming on. So we're going to get a little bit of the young blood in here and see what they got to bring.
He's going to have some nice books.
Yeah, he works at LCS, so he's got a comic shop, so he's going to have some good stuff. But that's it for tonight, guys. Again, thank you all my guests. Thank you, hosts. And thank you, Matt. And until next time, guys, keep it casual.